I'm here in beautiful Scottsbluff, Nebraska with Leanne Sato. We're standing here at one of the beautiful rain gardens that are part of the Downtown Garden feature. We're going to take a tour today. Leanne.
Good morning.
Good morning. Can you tell me a little bit about not only the garden behind us, but the project overall?
The project's actually started in 2010 with a rain garden at the Public Safety Building, which was to inspire residents to do similar green infrastructure in their homes. From there, we moved into the parking lot gardens, which was to depave downtown, add green space, make our snow removal more efficient, and reduce runoff to our storm system from downtown. And then we have a few scenic gardens, like the library bioswale here, which actually does have the bioswale for stormwater drainage. But we also have the Well House 13 and Serenity Garden, which are actually showcases for the Nebraska Statewide Arboretum program for great plants. Those are showcase areas for that.
Tell me a little bit about your stormwater program in Scottsbluff and why green infrastructure plays a role in it.
So the stormwater program in Scottsbluff was actually started in '96 with our permit. And then we formed Tri-City Stormwater a few years ago with gearing Scottsbluff and Tarrytown, since we are all considered a urbanized area. Scottsbluff heads up the education and outreach portion of that. And as far as green infrastructure and how that ties in, it's a really good way for us to showcase innovative ways to manage stormwater. And we hope that it inspires our residents to try some of these things at home. So behind us is the Leeds Scottsbluff Public Library bioswale, which was actually one of the middle projects, which was designed to mimic what we would see in a residential area. This was actually an Eagle Scout project done with one of our local scouts. So in this garden, this takes all the runoff from the newest edition of our library. You can see where the downspouts come off here. We have another two on the other end of the building. Those come into rock baffles, and then down into the bioswale, which is lined, of course, with our native flora and fauna here. We have a series of 6 different sedges in there. We lined the banks with Joe Pye weed up there, sumac, things like that. In the bottom here now is actually a drain. So it receives water quality treatment. It gets to infiltrate as much as it can. Whatever overflow we get goes into that drain and out to our storm sewer system here in the street. The parking lot gardens projects actually started in 2010 to reduce stormwater runoff and to depave downtown, add green space, make our snow removal more efficient, showcase native landscaping, and reduce runoff to our storm system from downtown. So this is becoming one of my favorite strips because the trees are getting big enough we're actually getting shade for the pavement now, and it makes it kind of scenic here. This is the Scottsbluff Broadway Plaza, and this is part of our downtown renovations that goes along with the bulb outs. And Parks actually maintains our plaza here.
And that's where your farmer's market is, right?
Our farmer's market is, we've been doing bands on Broadway here during the summer. We had food truck fair here last fall. So yeah, and you can see still carrying that theme of native landscaping through the beds. And in fact, NSA came out, and with our teen advisory council from the library, they did a pollinator plot in there.
So when we think about Scottsbluff, if you're on the eastern side of the state, we think of a very dry climate. Can you tell me how that plays into what you do and how you manage stormwater?
So yes, we are much drier than the eastern part of the state. So when we install green infrastructure, we install drip systems. We intend to use those for at least the first couple of years to help with our establishment. And then we hope that the plant life is doing well enough that we can kind of turn it off and let it function as it would naturally. We have a different plant palette than eastern Nebraska, different sets of grasses. Probably in our perennials is where I see the biggest difference. You guys have a lot more moisture. We get to choose things that like the dry and the hot. We also try to choose things that are drought tolerant. When we get to July and August, we're very hot, we're very dry out here.
All right, Leanne, one of the things we want to know about is how do you do the maintenance?
So in order to get them started, we actually, almost all of our gardens have been done with volunteer planting days. The first 7 years that we had these gardens was contracted maintenance. The city decided to see if it would be more cost effective to bring that in-house. So we tried that for a couple of years. We decided it was not more cost effective. It's actually more expensive. So we are going back to contracted maintenance now.
Doing maintenance in-house can be a real challenge for a lot of municipalities. Tell me, what was a challenge about the maintenance for you?
For starters, we have a limited staff. 2020, of course, threw us into a loop with COVID, so we were incredibly short-staffed, and we were working with not being able to work. But then we also have found the scheduling is different from standardized maintenance that we would do for other areas in the city. The second thing that we found was that there's a need for the expertise of horticulture and ecology background to maintaining these types of landscapes.
One of the coolest things you mentioned is those volunteer plantings. What kind of partnerships do you have with the volunteers, and what other partners do you have?
Okay, so our volunteer plantings, our Nebraska Extension Master Gardeners have been really valuable to us in those plantings. They come out and kind of serve as our group leaders when we do that and help our business partners that come out. So with the last major planting that we did, we had businesses actually sign up and they came out and did community service. So our master gardeners help serve as kind of educators during that planting process, especially for trees and some of the larger perennials.
What other kind of project partners have you had on?
So Nebraska Statewide Arboretum, who we did a lot of grant programming with, Nebraska's Forestry Service, a lot of consultation with them for picking the right trees, Nebraska Environmental Trust. We've had Source Gas help us in the past, North Platte and RD. Those have been the major ones that I can think of right now.
You've mentioned education. How do you use these for education?
We've had education programs where we would come out once a month and have a speaker highlight aspects of the garden. We try to do tours every year when Nebraska Statewide Arboretum comes out. We do a wildflower tour through the gardens. So we have signage in the gardens highlighting things like urban heat effect, pollinator habitat, that kind of thing.
Favorite question. What do you think the impact has been of all of these projects?
I think we're seeing inspiration in the community. We have had some great response from our downtown businesses who have adopted this type of landscaping into their own business landscaping. We've done a lot of consultation with other businesses wanting to start this kind of thing. We get a lot of questions from residents about rain gardens and how can I do this? So I think it's starting to make an impact in that people are starting to realize how they can manage their stormwater and the effects that it can have, and definitely with the native plants, how they can establish pollinator habitats and things like that.
Next, we're going to take a trip across the river to Gering, Nebraska.
I'm here today with Annie Folk in beautiful Gering, Nebraska. We're going to talk about the beautiful Gering Plaza here. Annie, can you give us an overview of this whole project that you have here?
Yes, this project was originally designed to be an outdoor extension of our Gering Civic Center. So the overarching goal of this is just to bring people downtown, get them to come to our downtown, hopefully stay a while, maybe spend some money at some of our downtown businesses, and just try to help with our downtown revitalization efforts.
So there's lots of different features in this park. Can you describe them to us a little bit?
So this was originally designed for multi-purpose. One is that we want to be able to host events. So things size maybe 300 to 500 people. So smaller concerts, weddings, family reunions. We've had a lot of corporate events that are interested in booking the space. Then outside of the event spaces here, we also want to just make it very inviting for people to come and spend time. So we have 4 different patio areas throughout the plaza, but just creating places where people can come eat their lunch or maybe work on homework or just spend time down here.
So are there features incorporated in this that are both water quality and managing water as well as this event space?
Yes, there are. So we have 2 permeable patios, permeable paver patios. We don't see a lot of those out here. It's kind of a newer thing, and so we wanted to have an area that we could demonstrate that to show what can be done with some of those permeable hardscape areas. Then, as you can see, we've got a lot of landscaping. We've got everything so that it drains to the lawn area. We wanted to make sure that everything from the stage, from the sidewalks, all of that drains into that area because we wanted to capture and infiltrate what stormwater we could. But that being said, we also didn't want to end up with a swimming pool there. And so we did tie into the storm drain system that's here along 11th Street so that when we do get a big rain and we do have a lot of water there, there's somewhere for it to go. We have fairly heavy soils here in Gering. We knew that if we didn't have a drain there to try to capture some of that and get it out of here, that we would end up with a lot of sitting water, which obviously is not what you want for an event space. One of the key things for a space like this is your landscape design, and I cannot give enough credit to our landscape designer. It was Chrissy Land, and this was her first big project. She did an amazing job of making the design very purposeful, that every feature in this plaza serves a purpose. And so I think it really helps differentiate it from some of the other green spaces in our city. I think this is truly a unique space, not just in Gering, but in the whole Panhandle. There's not many other places like this. We have all of our landscaping beds are very carefully designed with certain plant selections to be water-wise, to utilize minimal amounts of chemical and fertilizer and everything else. Plants are grouped by their own needs. Things that really, really like to be dry are grouped together. And then in some other areas, you've got some that maybe like to be a little more wet. You know, it's not unusual for us to go a couple months without any significant precipitation. And so not just for establishment, but also just to keep everything looking pristine and looking beautiful, we have drip irrigation on everything. Mulch is huge for us. We try to keep everything very well mulched. You might notice we use pine straw, which is kind of a new thing for us that we wanted to try here, and we absolutely love it. It's done a great job with the weed suppression, which helps so that they don't have those weeds competing for moisture. It also really helps maintain what moisture we have in the soil. We want to make sure that our plants stay healthy in the long term, and salt and plants just don't like each other. And so we really want to make sure that we're not putting excessive amounts of salt onto getting into our planting beds. And so instead our plan is to sand it, which I think will still accomplish our goal of trying to make sure that there's some traction and people can walk in here.
At one point, you maybe had a hard time sourcing some of the materials for pervious or permeable projects. Mm-hmm. How did this one go?
Many years ago, we tried to experiment with pervious concrete. We actually had the Nebraska Concrete and Aggregate Association was willing to come out and help us with the design and everything, but we just didn't have any contractors that wanted to really learn a new thing. Whereas pavers are a lot simpler. The pavers are not so different than the ones that you traditionally would put down. There is a big difference in the subgrade because there is a reservoir under there with a lot of large aggregates and everything to give that water a place to go. But it's really fairly simple.
You just had a big grand opening of the plaza, right? So how long has all of this been in place?
This has gone in phases. This was all previously parking lot space. In 2017, I believe, the parking lot on the north and south with the shade structures all were installed. And then this was all demoed, and actually it was all sod for a while there. And so we worked through some design challenges and everything, and actually did construction just last summer. And we just got this stage done this spring, so that kind of followed the rest of it.
Can you speak to some of the other challenges that came along with this design?
We definitely had some soils issues. It was pretty sterile with having been under concrete for so long. And so we did bring in some soil amendments. We used actually, Scottsbluff grinds their own wood waste into a mulch that they use. And we didn't use that mulch, we actually used what they screen out of that mulch. We took some of those screenings and mixed that in to get some organic material in there. Compaction was probably our next biggest issue. And so we had our contractor come through actually with a mini excavator and just dig everything up, break up that compaction layer down a couple feet, and then came through with a tiller, because before that you really couldn't even get a shovel in the ground.
What impact do you have on the community or any part that you like?
I think my favorite part about it is seeing people use it. And I just see people here all the time in the mornings and over their lunch hour. I see people walking for exercise. I see people eating their lunches. I see people just meeting with friends. And so I think it's doing exactly what we intended by bringing people to our downtown and getting them to want to stay. We're hoping to see more and more events in this area. And really, it's just really exciting when people come here and say, oh wow, I didn't even know this place was here.